Before the applause, before the Oscars, before the ranch and the fame and the name the world learned to admire, there was just a quiet boy packing cardboard boxes, trying to hold a family together that was already breaking. Kevin Costner didn't come from privilege. He didn't rise because the world lifted him. He rose because life kept knocking him down, and he refused to stay there. He has loved deeply and lost deeply. He has built homes and watched them fall apart. He has stood on the highest stage in Hollywood and stood alone in the silence afterward. This is not the story of a movie star. This is the story of a man who kept choosing hope when hope was the hardest thing to choose. If Kevin Costner's journey has ever touched you, even once, watch closely, because the world knows his films. But very few know the man behind them. Kevin Costner was born on the 18th of January 1955 in Linwood, California. His full name is Kevin Michael Costner. He was the youngest of 3 boys, but one of his brothers did not survive. His parents had already experienced the pain of losing a child 2 years before Kevin was born. The baby's name was Mark Douglas, and he passed away only 1 day after birth. The family did not talk about it openly, but the loss stayed with them. It lived quietly inside the home. Even though Kevin never met his baby brother, the sadness shaped the way love and protection worked in the family. His parents wanted to keep their children safe, and sometimes that made them strict or careful in ways that were not always spoken about. Kevin's father, William Bill Costner, worked hard his entire life. He started as a ditch digger, doing tough physical labor outside in the heat and cold. Later, he became an electrician and eventually a power line technician. The job was steady, but not easy. He left home early and came back tired. His hands were always rough from work. He did not complain, but the effort was clear. Kevin respected him, even when he did not fully understand everything his father carried. His mother, Sharon Costner, worked as a social worker. She spent her days helping people who were struggling, families who were having a hard time, and children who needed guidance. She was gentle and patient. She was the emotional balance of the home. But she also had her own quiet sadness. Sometimes she seemed lost in thought, as if remembering the baby she could not raise. She did not cry about it, but the memory was always present. Kevin noticed her silence, even as a child, and it made him pay attention to feelings more than words. The family did not have much money. They lived in simple homes and worked to make ends meet. Bills had to be watched carefully. Nothing came easily, but there was love and effort, even if they did not always say it out loud. Kevin grew up understanding the value of work, responsibility, and patience. These were not lessons taught by speeches, they were learned by watching. As a child, Kevin was not loud or outgoing. He was more quiet, more thoughtful. He watched how people acted and listened to how they spoke. He did not feel the need to take up space. He learned early that silence could hold meaning. He kept many of his thoughts to himself, not because he was shy, but because he was careful. One thing that affected him deeply was how often the family moved. They did not stay in one place for long. His father's jobs required relocation, which meant new neighbors, new schools, and new surroundings again and again. The Costners moved through several towns in California, including Compton, Ventura, Visalia, and Orange County. Every time they began to settle, it seemed like it was time to pack again. Kevin would watch his mother fold clothes into boxes, his father load them into the car, and the family would start another chapter. For most children, moving once or twice is manageable, but moving many times can make friendships hard to keep. It becomes difficult to feel rooted anywhere. For Kevin, this meant learning not to attach too deeply. He made friends, but he also learned not to expect to stay. He learned how to say goodbye before he ever learned how to stay in one place. This taught him how to adapt, but it also taught him how to protect his feelings. He later said that he always felt like an observer, someone watching life from just a little distance. That feeling began here, in the back seats of cars filled with boxes, watching the world pass by outside the window. Each move meant another fresh start, another attempt to fit in, another chance to figure out where he belonged. These early experiences shaped him in quiet ways. He did not feel special or noticed. He was just a regular kid trying to keep up, but he carried the lessons of endurance, patience, and starting over. He learned that life does not promise stability. You have to make it for yourself. Before fame ever touched his life, silence shaped his heart. Silence in the home, where love was felt more than spoken. Silence in the absence of the brother he never knew. Silence in the many moves where he learned to pack away attachments. This silence did not damage him, it prepared him. But childhood wasn't finished with him yet. In fact, the hardest lesson was still to come. As Kevin entered his teenage years, he was still the quiet one. He wasn't the type of teenager who tried to stand out or impress others. He kept to himself, observing more than speaking. While other boys tried to be the center of attention, Kevin stayed in the background. He was not shy in a fearful way. He was simply thoughtful, always paying attention to what was happening around him. This habit of noticing small details came from his childhood, when silence spoke louder than words at home. Because his family moved so many times, he never had the chance to form long friendships. Every time he got to know someone, every time he started to feel comfortable, the family would pack again and move to another town. He would walk into new schools where nobody knew him, and he would start from zero. He didn't complain about it, but it left a mark. He learned to adjust quickly. He learned to observe new environments before speaking. And he learned not to hold on to places or people too tightly. He told himself, quietly, that he would be okay, no matter where he was. In school, Kevin was not the student that teachers remembered easily. He did not cause trouble, and he was not the top student. He simply did what he needed to do. He sat in his classes, listened, completed his assignments, and went home. Many of his classmates likely passed by him in hallways without ever really noticing him. If he was missing, very few would have asked where he was. He was there, but he felt invisible, not in a painful way, just in a quiet, natural way. But while he was quiet on the outside, his inner world was active. Kevin had thoughts, feelings, and dreams he didn't express openly. He found a way to let them out through writing. He wrote poems, small pieces of reflection, sometimes letters he never sent. He wrote about the things he did not know how to say out loud. He wrote about movement, about trying to belong, about the feeling of always starting over. Writing became a place where he could be fully himself. He also joined the choir at school and at church. Singing, in a group, allowed him to express emotion without standing alone. His voice blended with others, and that made it easier. Choir became one of the few places where he felt connected to something steady. He liked the harmony, the idea that many voices could come together and make something stronger. It taught him how to support others without needing to be seen. Music helped him understand emotion in a simple, honest way. Kevin was never a star athlete in school. He played sports sometimes, but he was not known for them. He did not lead student groups or chase popularity. He was simply present, living, quietly, watching and learning. Many might have thought he did not have big dreams, but he did. He just did not talk about them. Maybe he believed people would not understand. Maybe he simply preferred to keep them safe inside. His family continued to move, and every move brought a new beginning. Each new town meant new routines, new classmates, new bus routes, new neighborhood streets to learn. Kevin didn't show frustration, but starting over always came with a small ache. He knew the pattern: meet people, learn the environment, settle in, then leave. It made him independent, but also a little distant. He began to expect change. Instead of resisting it, he adapted. This ability would later become one of his strengths in life and career. Through these experiences, Kevin developed patience and resilience. He learned to accept that life does not always give stability. He learned that you sometimes have to build your own sense of home, not in a place, but inside yourself. He realized that his feelings had value, even if he didn't share them openly. He understood that silence could hold meaning, not emptiness. Some children learn to speak loudly. Kevin learned to listen. He listened to the world, to people's tones, to pauses in their speech, to the things they did not say. He learned that understanding others begins with observation, not interruption. This would later become one of the reasons his acting felt so real. He didn't perform to be seen. He performed to express what he understood. By the time he reached the end of high school, he had grown not just physically, but emotionally. He didn't know exactly what he would become yet. He didn't know what path his life would take, but he had something strong inside him, a quiet curiosity and a capacity to start again without fear. And one day, the world would hear what he had to say, but not yet. When Kevin finished high school, he didn't have a clear plan for the future. He didn't come from a family where dreams were discussed loudly. The goal was to work, support yourself, and live honestly. So, he enrolled in college at California State University, Fullerton. He studied business, choosing marketing and finance because they were practical. It was a safe path, something his parents understood and respected. He attended classes, worked hard, and kept his quiet nature. He wasn't the loud voice in lectures or the one leading group activities. He did his work and went home. During this time, something important happened. He met a young woman named Cindy Silva. She was studying too, and was involved in acting and theater at the university. She had a warm personality, and people liked being around her. Kevin felt comfortable with her. She understood him in a way that didn't require him to speak too much. They enjoyed each other's company, going to simple places, sharing conversations, and building trust. To Kevin, Cindy represented stability and kindness. She believed in him, without forcing him to change who he was. As their relationship grew, they supported each other's goals. Cindy enjoyed acting, and Kevin admired her confidence. But he didn't see acting as something he could pursue yet. In his mind, acting looked like an impossible dream, something far away from his reality. He didn't talk about it often. He kept the dream quiet, almost hidden, because he didn't want to seem unrealistic or irresponsible. After graduating, Kevin did what he believed was the right thing. He married Cindy in 1978. Their wedding was simple. There were no big events or expensive celebrations. They started their life together with hope and a sense of responsibility. Kevin found a stable job. He worked in marketing and took roles that provided financial security. He wore professional clothes, kept a schedule, earned a paycheck, and tried to be the dependable husband he thought he needed to be. But inside, something didn't feel right. He was living the life he's supposed to live, but it did not feel like his own. Every day at work felt the same. He sat at a desk, followed instructions, and tried to blend into the routine. His coworkers probably saw him as reliable and quiet. He did not complain, but he felt disconnected. He knew he was capable of something more, something creative, something expressive, but the fear of disappointing the people he cared about kept him from saying anything. He didn't want to tell Cindy that he wanted to try acting because he respected her and didn't want to cause financial pressure or emotional worry. He didn't want to tell his parents because he knew how hard they had worked to provide him stability. He didn't want to tell himself because the thought of failing felt too painful. So he worked. He paid bills. He smiled when people said they were proud of him. But inside, the quiet ache grew stronger. Cindy loved him and supported him, but she could sense something was missing. Kevin wasn't unhappy in their marriage. He was grateful for her. But there was a part of him that felt unfinished. At night, he would sometimes sit awake, thinking about the feeling he had carried since childhood, the feeling that he was meant to create something. He didn't know what that something was, yet. He only knew he was not there. He tried to push the feeling away, but it didn't go. When he passed movie theaters, something pulled at him. When he watched films, he didn't just watch the story. He watched the actors' faces and tried to understand how they expressed emotion. He wondered how they learned to do that. He imagined himself inside their world, but he kept those thoughts private. He wanted to be proud of the life he was building, but quietly, he wasn't. The world was proud of him, he just wasn't proud of himself. He felt like he was pretending to be satisfied. He felt like a part of him was waiting for permission to exist. He didn't know how to change his life. He didn't know where to begin. And he didn't know if he ever would. Then came the flight that changed everything. Not long after getting married, Kevin and Cindy went on their honeymoon to Mexico. The trip was simple, meaningful, and full of hope for the new life they were starting. On the flight back home, something happened that Kevin would remember for the rest of his life. He found himself seated near Richard Burton, a famous actor known around the world. Kevin recognized him immediately, but he didn't speak right away. He wasn't the kind of person who rushed to approach someone. But something inside him pushed gently. The dream he had been carrying quietly for years came to the surface. He gathered courage and spoke to Burton. He told him that he admired him and that he had always been interested in acting, but he also admitted he was afraid to try. He explained that he was newly married, had responsibilities, and didn't want to disappoint anyone. Burton listened. He didn't laugh or dismiss him. Instead, he told Kevin something simple, something that stayed with him. You have to follow your heart. You will regret it if you don't. Burton also pointed out something small but strange that stuck with Kevin. You have green eyes. I have green eyes. You'll be fine. It was a small detail, but Burton said it with confidence. And sometimes a small push is all a person needs. When the flight landed, Burton's limousine was waiting on the runway, while Kevin and Cindy waited for the airport shuttle bus. Burton leaned out of the car window before leaving and said just 2 words, "Good luck." It was short, but it felt like a door opening. Something inside Kevin clicked. It felt like permission to listen to what he had been feeling his whole life. After returning home, Kevin couldn't shake the memory of Burton's words. He tried to settle back into work, back to routine, back to being the responsible man everyone expected him to be. But the feeling grew, stronger every day. He knew that if he didn't try acting now, he might never try at all. One day, he finally made the decision. He quit his job. He didn't have a detailed plan or savings to fall back on. He just knew he had to try. He and Cindy moved to Los Angeles so he could start pursuing acting full-time. The reality of the dream was much harder than he expected. The city was large, crowded, expensive, and competitive. Kevin didn't have connections. He didn't have experience. He went to audition after audition, often waiting in long lines just to be turned away after only a few seconds. Many casting agents didn't even look at him long enough to remember his face. He would hand out headshots, but they usually ended up in trash bins. Money became tight quickly. Kevin took whatever jobs he could find. He worked on fishing boats. He drove delivery trucks. He worked as a carpenter's helper. He even gave tours of celebrity homes on buses, pointing out the mansions of famous actors, while wondering if he would ever become one of them. Some days, there wasn't enough food. Cindy worked too, but it was still hard. They lived in small apartments, sometimes without proper heating. On cold nights, Kevin slept with layers of clothes on, using extra blankets to stay warm. He never complained to his parents. He didn't want them to worry or feel disappointed. Pride kept him silent. He also didn't complain to Cindy. He knew she had trusted him by supporting his decision, so he kept his fears to himself. Every morning, he got up and tried again. The worst part was not rejection. It was being ignored. It was walking into a room and realizing that no one was waiting to see him. that no one believed he could do anything special. He felt invisible again, just like in school. But this time, there was more to lose. Sometimes he thought about quitting. He wondered if he had made a selfish choice, if he had put pressure on his marriage, if he had traded something real for something impossible. But every time he stood in front of a camera, even just for practice, he felt something true inside himself. Acting made sense to him. It felt right in a way nothing else ever had. It's one thing to dream. It's another to burn your safety net for it. Kevin had burned his. There was no going back. He was committed now, fully and quietly. But the world didn't reward his courage, not yet. In Los Angeles, Kevin worked hard to get acting roles, but the beginning was rough. One of the first films he ever acted in was a small, low-budget movie called Sizzle Beach, USA. It was filmed early in his career, before he had experience or confidence. At the time, he took the job because he needed the work, and he believed any opportunity might lead to something bigger. The movie was filmed quickly, with very little money, and Kevin didn't feel proud of it, but he hoped it would at least be a step forward. However, the movie did not come out right away. Years passed. Kevin continued auditioning, working side jobs, and trying to build his career. Then, suddenly, Sizzle Beach, USA, was released when Kevin had already begun appearing in higher-quality films. It came out at the worst time when people were just starting to notice him. The movie looked cheap and unprofessional, and Kevin's acting in it was early and unpolished. He admitted later that he felt embarrassed and wished he could buy every copy and destroy it. Instead of being a stepping stone, the movie felt like something that could damage his reputation before it had even truly begun. But the embarrassment didn't stop there. Kevin finally got a chance to audition for a well-respected director named Lawrence Kasdan. Kasdan gave him a role in The Big Chill, a movie that had a strong cast and high expectations. Kevin played the role of Alex, a character whose death brings friends together. It was not a large speaking part, but it was meaningful. Kevin worked hard and believed this might be the moment people finally saw what he could do. But when the film was released, he was shocked to discover that every scene he appeared in had been cut. The character still existed in the story, but none of Kevin's performance remained on screen. His name was in the credits, but his face was nowhere to be seen. He went to watch the movie and realized that the part he thought would change his life simply didn't exist anymore. It was painful. He didn't get angry. He didn't complain. He just felt invisible again. This marked the beginning of what became 6 long, difficult years. Kevin continued attending auditions, but most of the time, he didn't get chosen. Casting directors often already had someone in mind. Sometimes they looked at him quickly and said he wasn't right for the role. He stood in many lines, handed out many headshots, and heard many polite rejections. The hardest part was that no one told him he was bad. They just didn't see anything in him that stood out, and being overlooked can be more painful than being rejected. During these years, he and Cindy struggled financially. Rent, food, transportation, everything was a challenge. Kevin worked jobs that paid just enough to survive. He would sometimes skip meals to save money. He kept trying, but his confidence slowly wore down. Each day felt like he was pushing a heavy weight up a hill that never seemed to rise. He thought about quitting more than once. He wondered if he was being selfish for continuing. He wondered if he was holding on to a dream that was never meant to be real. The pressure of wanting to build a stable life for his family conflicted with the desire to do something meaningful. These were not dramatic moments. They were quiet ones. Nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. He didn't quit because of pride, or because he believed he was better than others. He kept trying because acting made him feel alive. Even when no one wanted him, he knew he had something inside him that he couldn't ignore. He believed that if he stopped now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. The world didn't reject him loudly. It ignored him quietly, and that hurts more. He wasn't losing roles dramatically. He simply wasn't being seen at all. He was living in a space between hope and disappointment, too far to turn back, but not close enough to move forward. Then, unexpectedly, the phone rang. The phone call Kevin received was from Lawrence Kasdan, the same director who had removed all his scenes in The Big Chill. Kasdan had not forgotten him. He had remembered Kevin's attitude, his work ethic, and the way he handled disappointment without blame. Kasdan offered him a role in his new movie, Silverado, 1985. It was not the lead role, but it was memorable. Kevin played a lively, energetic cowboy named Jake. He didn't try to act like a typical tough Western hero. He played the role with honesty, personality, and natural humor. It was the first time audiences really noticed him. People watching Silverado did not just see an actor. They saw someone who looked like he belonged on screen. Kevin didn't seem like he was pretending to be someone. He seemed real. That quality made directors pay attention. Hollywood has many actors who are skilled, but not many who feel completely genuine. Kevin had that quality, and it set him apart. Soon after, Kevin was cast in The Untouchables, 1987, directed by Brian De Palma. This was the movie that transformed him into a recognizable leading man. Kevin played Elliot Ness, a federal agent determined to take down the gangster Al Capone. The character was serious, responsible, and brave, and Kevin played him with a calm confidence. He didn't shout to show strength. He didn't act dramatic to appear intense. His strength came from quiet determination. People connected with that. Viewers saw a man who was strong because he stayed true to his values. The public responded to that kind of character, especially during a time when many movie heroes were loud, aggressive, or flashy. The Untouchables was a big success. It made Kevin widely known, and suddenly, he was no longer invisible. Interview requests came. Magazines wanted him on their covers. Casting directors who once overlooked him now wanted to meet with him. For the first time, he felt like he was moving forward instead of standing still. But it was his next choices that made him more than a movie star. In 1988, Kevin starred in Bull Durham, a baseball-themed romantic comedy. This movie showed a different side of him. He was confident but relaxed, charming but not showy. People liked how normal and human he seemed. He didn't act like a distant movie star. He came across as someone you could actually know in real life. This made audiences trust him, enjoy him, and root for him. Then came Field of Dreams in 1989, a movie that would shape how the world saw him forever. The film was about family, memory, regret, and second chances. Kevin played Ray Kinsella, a farmer who hears a mysterious voice telling him to build a baseball field. The story was unusual, emotional, and gentle. Many people doubted whether audiences would understand it. But Kevin believed in the story because he understood what it meant to miss someone, to wish for more time, to hope for one more conversation. The most famous moment in the movie is when Ray speaks to his father on the baseball field. The line, "Dad, you want to have a catch?" became one of the most emotional lines in film history. Many viewers cried. Some remembered their fathers. Some remembered childhood. Some remembered moments they wished they could relive. Kevin delivered the line simply and softly. He didn't try to make the scene big. He let it be honest. And that honesty reached millions. This was when Kevin became more than just an actor. People began to feel that he represented something about American life, not the loud version, but the quiet one. The version built on trying, failing, loving, losing, and beginning again. Kevin played men who were not perfect, but who continued to stand up. He played men who worked with their hands, who listened more than they spoke, who made mistakes but still tried to do the right thing. He didn't just play heroes, he made ordinary men feel heroic. During these years, he also learned how to carry the weight of fame. Interviews, magazine covers, and public attention, these things arrived quickly. Kevin stayed mostly grounded. He still valued privacy. He still valued his family. But the schedule became heavy. Filming took him away from home often. He was trying to balance success with personal life, and that balance was not easy. Still, the audience loved him. Critics respected him. Studios trusted him. Kevin had become one of the most reliable leading men in Hollywood. He could make action, romance, comedy, or drama feel natural. He didn't try to impress people. He just tried to be truthful. But deep inside, Kevin still had a dream that had not yet been fulfilled. Acting had opened doors, but he wanted something more. He wanted to create stories, not just perform in them. He wanted to make films that mattered, films that said something real, films that honored history and humanity. He wanted to direct. This dream was big, expensive, risky, and uncertain. People warned him that it could ruin everything he had worked for. They told him that audiences would not sit through the kind of story he wanted to tell. They told him it was too long, too serious, too difficult. Almost everyone believed he would fail if he tried it. But his greatest gamble was still waiting, and everyone believed it would destroy him. When Kevin decided he wanted to direct his own movie, many people in Hollywood did not take him seriously. It was one thing to be a successful actor. It was another thing to step behind the camera and lead an entire production, especially a large one. The movie he wanted to make was Dances with Wolves. It was based on a novel that told the story of a Civil War soldier who lives with the Lakota Sioux people. The story was slow, thoughtful, and focused on culture and understanding instead of action. Hollywood believed audiences wouldn't care. They said people wanted excitement, not long, quiet scenes. Some people even told him that making this movie would end his career. They called it career suicide, but Kevin believed in the story. He didn't want to make the Lakota people side characters. He wanted to show their language, their values, and their way of life respectfully. He wanted to show a different side of American history, one that was often ignored or simplified. He wasn't trying to make a political statement. He simply wanted to make an honest one. He felt deeply that the story mattered, even if most of Hollywood did not see it that way. Getting the movie started was difficult. Funding was hard to secure. Studios did not want to invest in it because they assumed it would not make money. Kevin decided to move forward anyway. He put in his own money and formed his own production company to make it happen. This was a huge risk. If the movie failed, he could lose much of what he had earned so far in his career. But he accepted that risk because he felt that the story deserved to be told right. Once filming began, the challenges did not stop. The movie required filming in wide-open areas, with horses, buffalo, and complex scenes that took time. There were weather problems. Some days they couldn't film at all. Equipment broke. Costs rose higher than expected. People began talking in the industry. They said the movie was out of control, that Kevin didn't know what he was doing, that the production would collapse before it was finished. Directing and acting in the same film also took a heavy toll on him physically. He had to concentrate on his performance while also watching every detail behind the camera. He slept very little. He made decisions from early morning until late at night, every day. There were times when even the crew and producers began to doubt that the movie would turn out well. Some people suggested that he cut the movie shorter, change the story to be more exciting, or remove some of the parts spoken in the Lakota language, but Kevin refused. He believed the quiet moments were important. He believed the Lakota language needed to be spoken to show respect. He believed that the story needed to unfold patiently, not quickly. He stood by these choices even when almost everyone around him suggested otherwise. When the movie was finally completed and released in 1990, the response surprised almost everyone except Kevin. Audiences connected to it emotionally. They understood the message of respect, humanity, and learning between cultures. People were moved by the performances. They felt the sincerity of the storytelling. The movie did not feel fake or forced. It felt genuine, and that made a difference. Dances with Wolves became a major success. It made over $400 million worldwide, far more than anyone expected. The film didn't just do well financially, it also received critical respect. Viewers and critics recognized the care that had gone into making it. The Lakota language was spoken more in this film than in any major film before it, helping to preserve interest in the language and culture. Many Native American communities appreciated the respect shown in the movie. At the Academy Awards, the film earned 12 nominations. It won 7 of them, including Best Picture and Best Director. Kevin Costner, the actor who had once struggled to get small roles, who had once been ignored and cut from movies, was now being recognized as one of the most important creative figures in Hollywood. He stood on the stage holding the Oscar, not speaking loudly, but simply thanking the people who supported him. He never pretended the journey had been easy. He knew what it cost. After this success, Kevin became one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. Studios listened to him. Actors wanted to work with him. Directors respected him. He had proven that a film could be meaningful, quiet, respectful, and still be successful. He didn't chase history. He restored it. He brought dignity to a story that had often been told incorrectly or ignored. He showed that a movie could make people think without needing to be loud. But success comes with pressure. When you rise so high, expectations rise with you. People began to believe that everything Kevin touched would succeed. They assumed he would always make the right choices. They assumed he would always be the calm, confident hero on and off the screen. That kind of expectation can make every decision feel heavier. And Kevin felt that weight. He tried to stay grounded. He continued to work. He continued to learn. But Hollywood is a place where success does not stay still. People are always watching for the next rise, and also the next fall. The same people who praise you can turn away when things change. Kevin had reached the top of his career. But success is a tide, and tides always go back out. After the success of Dances with Wolves, Kevin was seen as someone who could do anything. Hollywood trusted him. The public admired him. Studios believed he had the touch to create movies that would always work. But high expectations can become heavy, and soon that weight began to push back. His next big project was Waterworld in 1995. It was planned as a large action film set in a world covered by water. From the start, the movie was difficult to make. The production required filming on the open ocean, which is known to be unpredictable. Weather caused delays. Expensive sets were damaged. Costs increased far beyond the original budget. The media heard about the rising costs and began calling the movie a disaster before it was even released. People joked about the film and about Kevin. They gave it nicknames, laughed at the production problems, and treated the movie like a guaranteed failure. When Waterworld finally came out, it did not do as badly as some people expected overseas. But in the United States, it was not well received. Many critics didn't like it, and the jokes about the budget and production troubles became louder than the movie itself. Kevin was suddenly a target. The same world that had celebrated him now mocked him. The negative attention did not stop there. His next major film, The Postman, in 1997, made the situation worse. Kevin directed and starred in it, just like he did with Dances with Wolves. But this time, the movie was not respected. Many people did not connect with the story. Critics were harsh, very harsh. Some reviews were not just negative, they were cruel. The film won several awards for being the worst of the year. The public laughed again. The man who once stood on the Oscar stage was now hearing his name used as a punchline. Financially, these failures mattered. Acting income had supported him before, but directing and producing meant that when a movie lost money, he felt the loss directly. His reputation as a director took real damage. Studios stopped automatically trusting his decisions. Offers became fewer. Opportunities that were once easy now required proving himself again. And proving yourself in Hollywood is rarely fair. Once the industry decides you are finished, it can be very hard to change that view. The emotional effect was quiet, but deep. Kevin had worked hard for many years to reach a place where he felt like he belonged. Now that ground felt like it was slipping away. Public failure does not only hurt pride. It affects how you see yourself. He began to feel tired. He was still working, still showing up, still trying to create meaningful films, but the joy that once drove him had dimmed. Being criticized is one thing, being mocked is another. Mockery does not challenge your ideas, it tries to erase your dignity. During these years, Kevin focused more on his family. He tried to be present at home. He tried to spend time with his children. Yet he also felt the strain that career pressure places on personal life. The stress followed him. He carried it quietly. People close to him noticed he looked older, more serious, less relaxed. Fame had once felt exciting, now it felt heavy. He did not publicly defend himself or argue with critics. That was not his nature. He simply kept working. He acted in smaller films. He tried different roles. He continued to push forward because he did not know how to quit. But the truth was that he was exhausted. He had given so much of himself for years to his work, to his reputation, to the expectations placed on him. Now he was being reminded that success can disappear as quickly as it arrives. The same world that crowns you will someday laugh while you bleed. Kevin saw that. Clearly now, fame was not loyalty, applause was not love, and the film industry was not a family. It was a business that could forget you the moment you were no longer useful. Slowly, the noise of the backlash faded. People moved on to new topics, new films, new stars. But for Kevin, the silence that followed felt heavier than the criticism, because in that silence, there were no more cheers, no more spotlights, no more conversations about greatness. And when the laughter stopped, all that remained was silence. Kevin's first marriage to Cindy Silva began with love, hope, and teamwork. They had started with almost nothing, supporting each other through small apartments, tight budgets, and the early struggle of his acting career. Cindy believed in him before the world did. She encouraged him when auditions led nowhere and when money was tight. That support mattered. It helped him stay steady when it would have been easier to quit. They built their life slowly, step by step, with fortune, patience, and trust. But as Kevin's career grew, the demands on his time increased. Acting roles required travel. Interviews required him to be present in cities far from home. And when he began directing, the pressure multiplied. Directing meant long days, long nights, and months away from his family. He wanted to be a good husband and father, but his work often kept him physically and emotionally distant. Cindy stayed at home, raising their 3 children, Annie, Lily, and Joe, while Kevin worked far away. Distance can become a quiet wall. At first, they both believed the separation was temporary and necessary. They said it was only for a period, that things would settle, that life would soon slow down. But life rarely slows down for someone in Kevin's position. Every success brought another opportunity, another project, another commitment, and every project took him further from home. Cindy began to feel alone. She was raising the children, managing the household, and trying to maintain a sense of normal life while Kevin was gone. She supported him, but support cannot replace presence. Even when Kevin came home, part of his mind was still connected to the work. He had responsibilities, deadlines, decisions to make. It was not intentional. It was simply the reality of a career that had taken on a life of its own. As years passed, the marriage changed. The 2 people who had once shared simple dreams were now living in different worlds. Kevin was surrounded by studios, sets, and public attention. Cindy was at home, carrying the emotional weight of the family. Neither one of them was wrong. They were just becoming distant, slowly and quietly. Love doesn't break loudly. It fades quietly until one day there is nothing left to save. There were misunderstandings and moments of mistrust. Rumors began to appear in the media about Kevin being seen with other women while filming. Whether the stories were true or exaggerated, they caused pain. Cindy felt overlooked and forgotten. Kevin felt misunderstood and overwhelmed. Conversations that once came easily now felt heavy. They tried to fix things. They went to counseling, took breaks, and tried to reconnect. But the damage was already growing. The hardest part was not anger, it was sadness. They loved each other, but they couldn't find their way back to the place where they used to stand together. Marriage can break, even when both people are trying. In 1994, after 16 years of marriage, Kevin and Cindy decided to divorce. The news quickly became public. The media focused on the financial side, especially because there had been no prenuptial agreement. It was one of the most expensive divorces in Hollywood at the time. Reports showed that Kevin paid around $80 million in the settlement. But the real cost was not money. It was the family they had built. They had to divide time with their children. Kevin knew that this meant he would no longer be with his children every day. He thought hurt him deeply. He had grown up in a family with strong bonds, and he had wanted the same for his own children. Now he was facing a situation where birthdays, school events, holidays, and simple daily moments would be shared or missed. He later said, "When you divorce, you don't see your children every day, and that's the greatest loss of all." The house where they had raised their children no longer felt like home. The routines, the laughter, the everyday noise of family life, all of it changed. Kevin found himself moving through the world with a sense of emptiness. He continued to work, because work was something he knew how to do. But emotionally, he was tired. He no longer felt grounded. Fame could not help. Success could not comfort. Applause could not fill the space that family once held. Cindy stepped away from public attention. She focused on raising their children, giving them stability. She and Kevin worked to co-parent respectfully. They attended school, events together. They tried to show the children that even though things were different, they were still loved. That part they handled with care. But privately, Kevin struggled. He began to question what success really meant. He had reached the top of Hollywood, yet the thing that mattered most, a family, had slipped away. He felt the loss deeply. The house felt quiet. The world felt heavier. And he understood that fame does not protect a person from pain. It can even make pain more lonely. He thought heartbreak couldn't find him again. He was wrong. After the divorce, Kevin entered a quieter and more reflective period in his life. The public attention had worn him down, and the emotional weight of losing daily life with his children stayed with him. He still worked, but he tried to slow down and understand who he was without the noise of fame. During this time, he met Bridget Rooney. She came from a well-known family, but she carried herself in a calm and grounded way. Their relationship was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle, short, and private. Kevin was still healing, and Bridget did not pressure him to be anything other than himself. Their time together did not turn into a long-term partnership, but something meaningful came from it. In 1996, they welcomed a son, Liam. The situation was complicated. Kevin was unsure of himself, unsure of whether he was ready for another child, unsure how to balance a new responsibility with everything he was already carrying. There was confusion, fear, and hesitation in the beginning, and it took time for things to settle. But there was one thing Kevin was always sure about. If this child was his, he would be present. He would not allow his son to grow up feeling unwanted or uncertain of his father's love. A paternity test confirmed that Kevin was indeed Liam's father. From that moment, Kevin accepted his role fully. He provided for him, set up financial support, and made sure Liam would have stability. But we did more than that. He showed up. He visited. He spent time. He tried to be consistent. He did not want Liam to feel like a quiet secret or a responsibility handled from a distance. Kevin had felt the cost of absence in his own life. Through work, through fame, through divorce. He knew what it was like to wish someone was there. He did not want his son to grow up with that same feeling. This period of Kevin's life was softer. He was not chasing awards or headlines. He was not trying to prove anything. He kept his personal life small and private. He spent time outdoors, spent time with his children, and tried to rebuild himself with patience instead of ambition. He listened more. He spoke less. He tried to stay grounded in the present, instead of worrying about what was behind or ahead of him. This experience changed how he understood fatherhood. Before, he had tried to balance everything: career, family, opportunity, responsibility. Now he focused on simply being there. He understood that being a father was not only about providing or teaching, it was about presence, showing up, being seen, being steady. It made him gentler, quieter, and more aware of the moments that were easy to lose. Some gifts arrived dressed like consequences. Liam's birth had come during a complicated and uncertain time, but the result was meaningful. Kevin became more aware of what mattered. He grew more patient, more inwardly steady. He no longer felt the need to prove his worth through public success. He wanted to build strength from within. His relationship with Bridget did not continue, but it did not end with anger. They respected each other and continued to communicate for the sake of their son. There were no public fights, no media scandals, no bitterness. It was handled quietly, carefully, and with maturity. Kevin was calmer now, but life has a way of surprising people, especially when they think the hardest chapters are behind them. He was not looking for something new. He was not searching for love. He was simply living, quietly rebuilding. And then, love returned, in a way neither expected. Kevin met Christine Baumgartner in the late 1992. She was younger than him, confident, calm, and steady in her personality. She worked as a model and also designed handbags. Their first interactions were easy and friendly, not rushed. Kevin was still carrying emotional weight from divorce and the years of rebuilding himself. He wasn't looking for a new relationship, and he didn't want to move too quickly. But Christine was patient. She didn't pressure him, and she didn't ask him to be anything other than himself. That patience allowed trust to grow naturally. They started dating, and their relationship developed slowly. Christine liked Kevin for who he was as a person, not for his fame. She paid attention to how he treated others and how he valued family. She understood his quiet side and respected his more thoughtful nature. Their connection felt real, steady, and warm. Kevin began to realize that he could feel at home with her. But there was a challenge between them. Christine wanted children of her own one day. Kevin loved being a father, but he was worried. He had already gone through a difficult divorce. He had already experienced the pain of separation from his children. He feared repeating that kind of emotional loss. The idea of starting again scared him. They separated for a while because of this difference. They cared about each other, but they weren't sure their futures matched. During the time apart, Kevin realized something important. He didn't want to lose Christine. He understood that fear was controlling him, and if he let fear make decisions, he would regret it. He wanted to build a life with her. When they got back together, Kevin chose to stop holding back. He committed to the relationship fully. They married on the 25th of September, 2004, at Kevin's ranch in Aspen, Colorado. The place was surrounded by open land, lakes, and quiet mountain views. Their wedding was beautiful but not showy. Christine arrived in a horse-drawn carriage. Family and close friends gathered to celebrate. It was a moment that felt peaceful and natural, not rushed or forced. Kevin later shared that he felt gratitude that he had been given another chance at love. Over the next few years, Kevin and Christine welcomed 3 children: Caden in 2007, Hayes in 2009, and Grace in 2010. Having young children in his home again gave Kevin a sense of renewal. He spent time with them in ways he wasn't always able to when his older children were small due to work and career demands. He read to them, played with them, took them exploring around the ranch, and watched them learn and grow. He tried to be present, steady, and available. Fatherhood felt meaningful to him in a deeper and calmer way than before. The ranch became the center of their family life. It was not just a house, it was a place of peace. The land stretched, wide and quiet. There were lakes, fields, trails, and views that opened into the horizon. The family spent time outdoors, walking, fishing, riding horses, and enjoying the seasons. At the ranch, Kevin didn't feel like a celebrity. He felt like a father, a husband, and a man who had worked through many chapters of life to arrive somewhere steady. Life at the ranch gave him something he had missed for many years: a feeling of belonging. The house was full of children's laughter, everyday routines, shared meals, and small moments that made life feel full. Kevin had spent much of his life moving, starting over, chasing work, and balancing public attention. Now, he could slow down, look around, and feel that he was exactly where he needed to be. Christine supported him quietly. She didn't chase the spotlight. She focused on the family, the home, and her work in a balanced way. She believed in his projects and gave him space when he needed to focus on filmmaking. Kevin respected her strength and independence. Their partnership felt equal and calm. During these years, Kevin also continued to act and develop new projects, but he managed his work more carefully. He tried to make time for family, especially when their children were young. He drove them to school events, attended games, and was present during holidays and birthdays. He wanted to be the kind of father who could be seen and remembered in the everyday moments. There was a sense of completion in this chapter, a feeling that life had come together in a balanced and meaningful way. Kevin once said about Christine and their children, "This is what I was running toward all along." For a moment, he finally believed the story was complete. But life doesn't always stay still. Even the most peaceful chapters can change without warning. Careers shift, people grow, priorities move, and the pressures of work and personal life began slowly building again, just as they had before. There were more roles, more responsibilities, more time spent away from home. And distance, even when small at first, can create quiet gaps, the kind that are easy to overlook until they grow larger. For a time, the peace held. The ranch remained steady. The family stayed close, and Kevin believed he was finally living the chapter he had waited for. But the world had one more storm prepared for him. In the years that followed, Kevin continued to work in film, but his career moved at a slower pace. He was respected, but he was no longer the center of Hollywood conversation. That changed when he took the role of John Dutton in the TV series Yellowstone in 2018. The show followed a family trying to protect their land and legacy. The character was strong, flawed, and deeply protective qualities that matched parts of Kevin's own personality. Viewers connected with the role immediately. The show became one of the most watched dramas on television, and Kevin found himself in a position he had not been in for many years, leading something that had become a cultural force. The success of Yellowstone reminded people of his value as an actor. It was not loud or flashy success, it was stable and earned. Audiences felt that Kevin brought real experience and emotion to the role. He didn't have to act like someone who understood loss, responsibility, and love. He simply understood those things from his own life. The show gave him not just recognition, but renewed confidence. It showed that his career was not behind him. He still had stories to tell. But while Yellowstone brought him back into the spotlight, Kevin's heart had been holding on to another dream for decades, a project called Horizon. He had imagined the story back in the late 1982. It was a Western saga about the early American frontier, focusing not just on conflict, but on community and survival. It was large in scope, emotional in its themes, and very personal to him. For many years, studios did not want to fund such a large and slow-burning story. They thought audiences had moved on from Westerns, but Kevin didn't let the idea go. He stored it, shaped it, and waited. When the success of Yellowstone brought him back into conversations in Hollywood, Kevin used the opportunity to bring Horizon to life. But the financing still wasn't easy. To move forward, he invested his own money, millions of dollars that came from his personal savings and property. He believed that the story was worth the risk. It was something he wanted to leave behind, something that would show the world the value he saw in history, community, and endurance. He began production, working long days in the heat and dust. The work was physically demanding, especially at his age, but he didn't complain. He was doing something he cared about deeply. However, the commitment to Horizon required time. Time away from home. Time away from Christine. Time away from their 3 younger children. The same pattern that had stressed his first, the marriage began appearing again. Christine felt that the family was being put second. Kevin felt that he was working to secure their future and complete a project of meaning. Neither person wanted to hurt the other, but emotional distance grows quietly, without sudden warning. In May 2023, Christine filed for divorce. The news shocked the public. For almost 20 years, their marriage had seemed steady. There had been no public fights, no scandals, no signs of trouble. But inside their home, there had been growing separation and unmet needs that had finally reached a breaking point. The divorce was painful for both of them. They had built a life together, raised 3 children, shared holidays, dinners, small routines, and quiet everyday moments. What made the situation more difficult was the custody discussions that followed. Christine and Kevin both wanted to do what was best for the children, but they did not agree on what that looked like. The legal process began. Papers were filed. Statements were made. Court dates were set. And the media reported every detail, turning private pain into public conversation. Kevin had experienced heartbreak before, but this one felt heavier. He was older now. He understood more clearly what was being lost. When his children were young, he had been the steady center of their daily lives. Now he would have to divide time, share holidays, and miss mornings and evenings that once felt ordinary but now felt priceless. He could rebuild money, but laughter under one roof once lost does not return. The divorce also created emotional strain during the work on Horizon. Kevin continued filming while dealing with legal meetings, financial negotiations, and emotional stress. Crew members noticed that he was quiet, focused, but visibly tired. He held himself together because he had to, but holding yourself together does not mean you are not hurting. Eventually, the court decisions were made. The terms were set. Christine moved out of the Santa Barbara home. The children began living between 2 households. The ranch that had once been filled with shared routines now held a different kind of quiet. Kevin did not speak negatively about Christine in public. He did not blame her. He did not defend himself loudly. He handled the situation the same way he had handled many difficult chapters in his life privately, steadily, with as much dignity as possible. He continued to show up for his children, attending their events, supporting their activities, encouraging their interests. He tried his best to keep a sense of security around them. In interviews, he spoke about how much he loved his children. He spoke about how difficult the transition was. But he also spoke about continuing forward. Life does not stop for anyone, even when it hurts. The success of Yellowstone, the effort behind Horizon, and the end of his marriage all happened at the same time. It was a period of extreme highs and deep lows, triumph and loss, side by side. And still, life wasn't finished teaching him. As the years moved forward, Kevin began to feel the effects of time in his body more clearly. He had spent decades riding horses, doing physical scenes, traveling, working long days, and rarely resting. That kind of life leaves marks. His back often hurt. His knees were stiff. Some mornings, getting out of bed took slow movement and patience. The energy that once came easily now required effort. But he did not complain about aging. He accepted it as part of the life he had lived. He continued to wake early in the mornings. He liked the quiet before the day began. At the ranch, the air felt cool and clean at sunrise. He sometimes stood outside with a cup of coffee, looking out across the open land. The stillness helped him think. He no longer needed applause or attention to feel fulfilled. The most meaningful parts of his life were not loud. They were simple: preparing breakfast, watching his children grow, making sure they felt strong and supported, and working on the films and stories that mattered to him. Even with age, his work ethic did not change. He still believed in showing up, doing the job fully, and not cutting corners. On set, he worked alongside younger actors and crew members, many of whom were surprised by how committed he still was. He didn't ask for special treatment. He didn't stand back and supervise. He was involved, hands-on, attentive. His belief in doing things the right way never faded. But he also learned to step back when needed. He didn't try to force his body to match the strength he once had. He adjusted. He worked smarter, not harder. He focused more on directing and developing stories than on physical action roles. He conserved his energy for the moments that truly mattered. The shift wasn't about slowing down. It was about changing direction with purpose. His children continued to be the center of his life. He tried to show them what responsible love looked like. Not through speeches, but through presence. He went to their school events. He sat with them during homework. He took them riding and fishing. He listened when they talked. He understood that being a father was not just about providing. It was about showing up in ways that could be remembered. Kevin knew that careers fade, fame changes, and public attention moves from one person to another. But the memories his children held, the lessons they learned, and the security they felt that would last long after the cameras stopped, fatherhood had become his deepest legacy. The performances and awards were part of his story, but his children were the part he valued most. There were days when his body reminded him that time was moving on. There were moments when he felt the weight of everything he had lived through: success, heartbreak, rebuilding, and loss. But there was also peace, a calm sense of understanding. Time takes strength from the body, but gives truth to the soul. Kevin no longer needed to prove anything. He had already lived many lives in one. He had been a son, a husband, a father, a friend, a storyteller, a dreamer, and a survivor. In the quiet of early mornings, he sometimes thought about the different paths his life could have taken, the moments that changed everything, the choices that hurt, the choices that healed. He didn't regret the past. He simply carried it with him, gently. Yet even now, one story remains unanswered. Looking back across Kevin's life, it becomes clear that strength is not measured by how loudly a person stands, but by how quietly they continue. His story shows that endurance does not mean avoiding pain. It means learning how to live with it and keep going. He experienced success that few people ever reach, but he also experienced losses that cut deeply. Some of those losses were private. Some were very public. But he never stopped moving forward, even when the next step felt heavy. Throughout his journey, love played a central role. His love for his parents shaped his understanding of loyalty. His love for his first wife, Cindy, showed him how the pressures of ambition can change relationships even when the intention is good. His love for his children taught him that being present matters more than any achievement. His love for Christine gave him peace for many years, and even when that chapter changed, the love itself remained real. Love did not disappear. It simply became something different: memory, gratitude, and responsibility. Loss also shaped him. The loss of his brother before he was born affected the emotional atmosphere of his childhood. The loss of daily life with his older children after his first divorce was painful in a quiet, lasting way. The loss of Whitney Houston was a reminder that some connections are deeper than the world ever sees. And the end of his second marriage reminded him that life does not promise stability, even when it gives moments of peace. But Kevin did not let the loss close his heart. He learned to reflect rather than shut down. He learned that the hardest moments can teach the most valuable lessons. He learned that life does not always go the way we plan, and sometimes the map must be drawn while walking. A rich life is not one that avoids pain, it is one that transforms it. Art played its part as well. Film was never just a job for him. It was a way to communicate what he believed about courage, family, and connection. Whether acting, directing, or writing, he tried to tell stories that felt honest. Stories about people trying to protect what matters. Stories about remembering where we come from. Stories about love that does not always end the way we expect, but remains meaningful anyway. Faith also had a quiet place in his life, not necessarily in the sense of religion, but in the sense of believing in the unseen, believing in the value of effort, the importance of patience, and the idea that the heart can heal if we allow it time. He learned that faith is not the belief that things will always be easy. Faith is the belief that we can keep walking even when they are not. As he enters the later part of his life, the greatest lesson his story offers may be this: life is unfinished. No matter how many chapters a person has lived, there is always something ahead. A conversation not yet had, a moment not yet felt, a piece of the heart still discovering itself. Kevin's life was never just about fame, awards, or success. It was about learning how to stay human while carrying experiences that could easily harden a person. He chose softness, where others might have chosen distance. He chose to keep loving even after loss. He chose to keep creating even when success was uncertain. He chose grace when bitterness would have been easier. And the horizon? It is still waiting,